first thing I would say is that I'm not anti-feminist per se. I mean, I think the idea that the world would benefit from the movement of talent from both sexes into the workplace as rapidly as possible is something that anyone with any sense should share, given the rather the rarity of talent and the necessity for utilizing it. I do stand by my original statement, though, that there's a brand of more radical feminism that insists that our culture is best characterized as an oppressive patriarchy, and I think that, first of all, that's an appalling sociological doctrine, and I think it has very negative psychological effects. And they won't be limited to men, because if it's true that there's something toxic, let's say, about masculinity per se, what that will inevitably mean is that as women adopt more masculine roles, traditionally, what is that toxicity somehow going to go away?
But that's a straw man, because no one says there's anything toxic about masculinity per se.
What do you mean no one says that?
People
the term exists.
No.
How is that a straw man?
Well,
but where did the term come from?
It's a phrase that's used about forms of masculinity that are harmful to men and women. It's not about masculinity per se. You must know that.
I read the American Psychological Association guidelines for the treatment of boys and men, and I know perfectly well that this is no straw man. And it's not only devoted towards what you might describe as the more aggressive ends of masculine behavior. It's aimed at masculinity in a much broader range of. There's a much broader range of accusations that are under the surface than that. And so I don't see in what way at all that it's a straw man.
I'm just going to pause that argument for a second and go to Catherine McGregor. And Catherine, I mean, you've lived on both sides of the gender fence. So what are your thoughts on these issues? And just go back to the question that was raised.
I don't know whether that qualifies me or disqualifies me, frankly. Sorry, guys, I ratted on the team, but not for any sociological reason. It was intensely personal. I gather we might address that. But look, I'm not entirely out of sympathy with Jordan's critique. I'm the oldest person on this panel, bar you, Tony, and in my lifetime, I've seen rolling institutional crises through the West. You know, the great American settlement based on Bretton Woods and NATO and the United Nations and so on is fraying globally in the area that I can talk about with some authority. We're seeing a dissolving global order now with the rise of two autocratic totalitarian capitalist states, which is replicating the conditions of the 1930s. And I gather we're not doing the geostrategic stuff, but I think it's very alarming. When Robert F. Kennedy, who was my political hero, was running for the presidency of the United States in 1968, he addressed disenfranchised African Americans who were wearing the backlash from many white men who were losing their jobs or perceiving that they were losing their jobs. The deindustrialisation of the West as jobs are exported to the developing world, all of these factors are, Bobby Kennedy said it wasn't Germaine Greer that said it. He said, when you remove from a man the right to stand before his family as a breadwinner, and people will say that's patriarchal.
That's your minute, by the way. So.
All right, well, I'll shut up. But the removal of meaningful work amongst especially unskilled men has a political consequence. And it's been washing through the American system since 1980 with the Reagan Democrats, the fraying of the New Deal coalition. I don't entirely agree with Jordan's analysis, but the problem can't be gainsaid. And 3 million books later in 50 languages or whatever it is, I bought your book, by the way, and you're outselling Shane Warne. Now, that's a culturally specific reference. That delights me in two ways, because in Australian cricket, no one has more bleached blonde hair or has had more work done than I, but Warne is a close second.
We should put that out on Twitter.